Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a fun, unique video. We're going to talk about what makes a book great. This is a conversation I've been bouncing around in some videos and just in life, right? Because I talk about what I love about books, talk about what I don't like about books, but the real thing that draws me to this hobby, and I feel like what draws a lot of this hobby, is finding a book that sticks with us and that we define as great. Now, what am I defining as great versus good? Because there is a difference, right? Good is entertaining. Good is like, oh, I enjoyed that. Great is it changed my life, right? It's powerful. In the literary, impactful sense, it's powerful. And I think that the majority of books that I read, I got pretty good taste, guys. I normally don't read things that I hate. Sometimes I do. Sometimes we all make mistakes. But I read a lot of things that are good. I read a lot of things that I'm like, oh, I'm glad I read that. I got some entertainment value out of it. But great is rare. It's a diamond in the rough. It's something that sticks with you. Something becomes one of your favorite books of all times, favorite stories of all time. Something that really sticks with you that you apply to things outside of the hobby of reading. You're in a life situation and you think about the book and it impacts your life decisions, your way of thinking, your psychology, your philosophy. That's what a great book does. It's powerful. It reaches beyond the veil of words on a page and changes your life significantly. That is great. Versus like, oh, it was fun time, it's good. At best, it's good. And this is a very fluid definition in the sense that a great book by one person isn't necessarily a great book for another, because impact and power is extraordinarily personal, guys. It's dependent on who you are and what you've experienced and what you connect with. It's very different, and I think that's what makes reading such a great hobby, is that people have a different pantheon of great, impactful books for them, and I think that's wonderful, right? But I think that there is a distinct difference between great and good, and I think that there is maybe not a formula, but there's a baseline for what a great book needs. And I want to talk about this a little bit and start a dialogue, because you guys always have great input, great opinions, and I want to start this discussion of what makes a book great for you and what common elements are you saying about all your great books. Because I think, although great is personal, I think that the most commonly great books are the most impactful on a wide scale. So we could spread some of those recommendations around. We'll all be reading great books and just like enhancing our lives and becoming like ascended, you know what I mean? It'd be so great if we could do that. What if, guys, what if I ushered in a new world? That's not really the point of this video. We're just talking about books, guys. So I think one of the basic summary of a great book is this, you have to ask the question, does it make you feel? I think that's the baseline for a great book. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, and if I hate a book, I feel anger. Does that make it great? Don't be so pedantic, guys. That's obviously not what I mean. If the author intended you to feel anger, then maybe you got an argument there. But I'm not talking about feel in the general sense that you feel emotions. Like, we're always feeling things like intended, maybe even unintended in some cases in the author, but like the work makes you feel emotions that make sense within the scope of the story and you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, right? But you have to feel something. And I think one of the biggest crimes of a book, or even anything in this world, is something that causes wasted time. Because let's face it, guys, not to get deep on it, not to like ruin your life, but your day-to-day, everyone's day-to-day, is full of forced time allocation, right? You gotta go to work, you gotta go to school, you gotta go to the DMV, you gotta go to the grocery store. Not a lot of people really, oh, I can't wait to spend the majority of my day, even sleep. I love a good snooze as much as the next guy. But if you like look at the stat, it's like you spend over a third of your life sleeping. That's pretty depressing, right? And we can't help these things. So I think what makes hobbies in general so special is it's a purposeful designation of time. We're saying, I have a very limited amount of free time that I can spend doing a very limited amount of things, and I've decided to dedicate that to something that I enjoy, and in this case, for most of us, it's reading, and reading is a time-consuming hobby, but in that sense, there's nothing more tragic then you spend a lot of hours of your life reading a book only to feel nothing about it. Even intense anger about how bad it is something, right? It gets the blood pumping. But if you just feel neutral about it, it's barely even good, not even sniffing at great. It's a tragic waste of your life essence, doing something that was just fine. You know what I mean? And I think that's horrible, right? So we want to be reading great books, but what causes these books to be great? And I think it's narrowed down to two specific things. And I've said this before in the past. So if you're a real one, what am I going to say? Two things: character and theme. Those are the only two elements of a great book that make it great. You don't need both of them, although most great books do have both. Sometimes you only need one really, really well done. And I know what you're thinking, Owen, you forgot about plot. That's my hot take, guys. Plot, not important. To making a book a great book, plot is not important. It's the foundation, to be certain. It is what you need as a bare minimum, to be certain, right? But think of it like a building. If plot is the foundation of a building, yeah, you need it to be good, because then the house will not blow up and everyone will be crushed inside. That's pretty important, right? But if you have three different plots with all the same foundation, those could be completely unique buildings, right? And with all different purposes and utilities and greatness of a building. What makes a building great, guys? That's the sequel. I know nothing about buildings. What am I talking about? But it's important for it to work on a very base physical level of is this a story? You need plot, right? Or at least a semblance of plot. The greater you get with theme or characters, the more you can make the plot go, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. Structure? What's that? You get a little bit more freedom there, but at the base you do need to know like the basics of storytelling. But that's not what makes a book great. Many good books have great plots, but sometimes great books don't need great plots. I don't know why I turned into Jack Sparrow there, but just to get out of here. Plot, it's fine. If you're here, good for you. It's characters and it's theme. And why is character so important to make a great book? Because at the basis, and I feel like it's not a cheat code, but it's the easiest way to make this emotional aspect come out of a book is connection, right? Great authors have a way of writing characters that may not like resemble you one-to-one, but they have elements of the character that people latch onto and that people connect with, and they see themselves in it. And that's like the easiest way to get a reader invested, I think. And in one of the most impactful ways as well, because if you see yourself in one of the characters, you're immediately invested in everything they do, everything they say, all the decisions they make. You're connected to the book in a way that's beyond the plot and beyond like the story in a way. You're investing yourself into the world, which is something that I think is unique to books in a lot of ways, because of the amount of time you be spending with a lot of characters. But I think, and listen, I'm a big fantasy guy, and a lot of people are fantasy books are hard to be great, right? Unless it's Lord of the Rings. I don't like it's not only about Lord of the Rings, guys. There's a lot of great fantasy books out there. But I always talk about Robin Hobb, and her character work is absolutely outstanding because I see elements of myself in almost every single character, right? And they say that authors should do that. When you're writing a book, you should invest different parts of yourself in every single character. That way you're writing from what you know. It'll be more natural. It won't feel as forced. You're not drawing from experiences that you don't have. But a great author knows how to write dynamic, multi-layered characters that if they have at least one aspect that everybody can relate to. And even though you're reading like a pirate fantasy by Robin Hobb, their emotional struggles, their aspirations, their goals are rooted in very, very human qualities that a lot of people can relate to. And that's the hardest thing I think for an author to do, is make their characters human, which is really, really weird. And I don't mean human in like you're not an alien. Come on. Again, guys, stop being so pedantic. The words that I say aren't meant to be always taken 100% face value. Right? I'm getting really angry with you guys. You keep saying things in my head. The voices, they keep getting louder. But it's the human aspect of flaws that are rooted in something reasonable, I feel like, or at least flaws that, well, how do I want to describe this? It's like you could see the path there. It's something to do with empathy, guys. I'm not smart enough to discover it, but it's like if there's a character who's making a lot of mistakes, at least if you know where they're coming from, if you know the character well enough, you know how they got to that conclusion. Same thing with people in real life, guys. Nobody's perfect, right? And I feel like one of the great skills of humanity is if people make stupid errors and you're like, this guy's a moron. Is learning to backtrack people's like motivations and be like, okay, I understand why you did it at least, even though you're still an idiot. Books give us a deeper look into the human brain, and if that layer of logic checks out, checks out green, we connect with them instantly, even if they make decisions that we wouldn't necessarily make. And if they have an ambition or internal struggle that we connect to, even better, because that makes all their decisions all the more reasonable, because you're like, there's nothing more scary than when an author reads you one for one, and you think, I kind of relate to this character, they make a mistake, and you're like, I would have done the same exact thing, and every other character's calling them a moron, and you know what? I can hardly blame them because I would have done the same exact thing. That's why I like Robin Hobb so much, is because she like soul reads me. Sometimes I'm like, this character, I like this character. This character's a legend, just like me, perfect in every way, makes a horrible error. Massive blunder on a world-ending scale, and I'm like, I thought it was a good idea when you said it too. So, right? Because what do people don't, on the flip side, what do people don't like about a book? And you can tell my structure has gone all the way out the window. They dislike it when the characters feel unbelievable. And what do they say by unbelievable? It's that they're making decisions or they're saying things that a regular person wouldn't say. They lose that human aspect. It's like, oh, this character, this main protagonist is a moron. They always make the wrong decisions. You watch a horror movie. Why would you open the door? Nobody would open the door. No one would go into the dark, scary house. You're losing the human aspect because nobody is relating to the actions that they're making. Not saying you need to have a perfect protagonist or you need to have a really smart protagonist. You could have a dumb protagonist that's just as dumb as everybody else, guys. You know what I mean? Like the real life people. You're making them make decisions in a way that normal people don't think that way, either in servants of your plot, which we already said is not that important, or just because you're just not that good at writing yet. You need to practice some more. You know what I mean? And that's why I also degrade on plot a little bit, is because authors, I think a lot of times think it's so important that they'll change their characters to service their plot. And the thesis of this video, guys, you need great characters to have a great book. So if you're changing your characters to service the plot, you're immediately knocking yourself down. Maybe you can make it good, but you're lowering your ceiling, guys. So making characters and making them human and in the most general sense, they make realistic decisions, will have a greater audience connect to them and give a greater chance of your book becoming great and more characters that you can relate to. The best books are books with a whole cast of characters that you can find individual aspects that you can relate to all of them, the good guys, the bad guys, the in-between. Because then it's just like you see yourself in all of them and you understand everybody's motivations and you feel like a genius, first of all. You're like, I know all this world of people. I understand all their motivations. And it's not because you're smart. It's not because I'm smart. It's because the author has done a great job creating human, believable characters. Right? And that's what makes a great book. Because then, like, if something tragic happens, maybe your character dies, and you invested so much of yourself into them, oh, you weep. You weep, guys. Listen, I was going to give a really stupid example. I'm like, we must have all invested ourselves so much in Dumbledore. Am I right, guys? I see myself in Dumbledore, bro. So no spoilers, but if you haven't read it, Dumbledore dies, bro. We all saw ourselves in him. That's why we all cried. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's a stupid example. But you know what I mean? It's just characters like that we invested ourselves in. We saw him, or we saw ourselves in Harry, who invested so much in Dumbledore and saw him as a father figure, as a mentor figure. It's sad. It elevates it. I think that having a visceral reaction to the plot of a book, or like the events of a book, to the character actions of a book, is almost entirely due to characters, and it's a magical thing, guys. I know I said in an earlier video that I think people who laugh at books are psychopaths. I got a lot of comments. People are like, I laugh all the time at books out loud. So I think I'm the psychopath. Maybe that's just an emotion I can't access when I'm reading a book. But it's just stuff like that. It's magical, guys. To read stagnant words on a page, hallucinate in your mind imagination and pictures, and then have like a real life reaction. It can't be beat. It can't be beat. But that's just one possible aspect, one possible road to greatness, guys. The second one, which I think is my personal favorite. I do love great characters. It's theme, guys. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, literary teacher Owen's coming out. It's all about theme. What's the meaning, right? They were right, guys. Our English teachers were right. However, they made us read very boring books and trying to find the theme. So maybe right in intention, wrong in execution, perhaps. But some of my other favorite books, some of my other all-time greats, it's about a meaning, or the author has a meaning, and it's about something greater than what's happening. And it's greater than the characters that are on the page. And to use another fantasy example that I talk about all the time, it's Malazan, right? It's Steven Erikson. I think Steven Erikson is one of the greatest fantasy writers, in terms of theme, maybe one of the greatest theme writers of all time. It's a very chaotic world, a lot of characters, a lot of confusing events. The plot is all over the place. The world is all over the place. A lot of people get overwhelmed by those details. But if you're just reading those books for theme and what it says about humanity, what it says about the world in real life, I think it's so much value. Has so much value, and I think that not to dig on authors again. I think a lot of the times one of the major issues that authors have is they're not going in to writing a book or writing a story with that ulterior purpose. And I know it's a debate within the writing community. It's like, do you need to have a theme before you start writing? Do you need to have a purpose or should you just follow the characters and see where they take you? I don't know what's the best writing technique, but I know that some of the most milquetoast books I read, some of the most it was okay books, didn't have that deeper meaning. And sometimes that deeper meaning is found through characters and found through these characters discovering themselves, right? So I feel like a lot of these writing tips that are go into a book blind, go into a screenplay blind, the theme will emerge from itself. It's emerging from the characters. But if you're not a character writer, if you're not trying to focus on characters, I think you need to have that purpose. You need to have that message to share. In Steven Erikson's case, he's writing about compassion and how people, not to quote the third book in the series, but how people guard the giving of it and how people think that it's a reward, compassion, when it should be given freely. That's one of the core tenets of the entire book. I know, not something you'd expect from an epic fantasy 10-book series. But it is, and I know it sounds like I'm just being pretentious about it, but it's very obviously the theme, and it doesn't take a genius to figure that out and to grasp that meaning of it. And I think it elevates the entire text to a whole nother level with that author's very simple tenet in mind, because that shapes how the characters act, that shapes how the events act, but it's very clear when an author has a distinct message that they want to share. And I think it makes it doesn't make you smarter, but it makes you, when you finish the book, you feel like you're a better person afterwards, which isn't necessarily always the case with a great character. You're more likely to feel intense emotion if you're reading a character you connect to, and it may stick with you, these characters, more. But a good theme, I think, changes your life philosophy, no matter how simple it is. If it's just treat other people with kindness and with compassion, I could say that and he's like, all right, yeah, mark that off. But if you read a 10,000 page series about that topic and how that impacts other people and how it impacts the characters that give that compassion, it does stick with you. It leaves a mark on your soul, which is something that only great pieces of art can do, right? That's why you look at some people look at paintings and they start to weep. You know what I mean? It's not because they rubbed onions on it. You know what I mean? It's somebody saw that and found a deeper life-altering meaning in a stagnant piece of art, and it changed their life. And that's what theme is. You know what I mean? And I think it's extraordinarily special. It's a lot harder for me to verbalize what causes that change, because I'm not Albert Einstein over here. You know what I mean? I can't figure that out, but I do know that is what changes people's life in books. It's theme, it's meaning, it's the underlying purpose of a piece of art that you read, and it sticks with you and changes the way you interact with people in the real world, right? For the better, hopefully. Hopefully you're not reading themes that are nihilistic or sadistic, all right, maybe keep those books on the shelves, guys. You know what I mean? But I think it's very special when you read a book with a great theme. And a lot of classics knew this. That's why they're classics, is because they have great themes and great underlying meanings. And a lot of them have a mix of those great characters. You know, a classic is The Great Gatsby, right? I think there's a great theme there that stuck with a lot of people throughout history. And there's great characters as well. Some people relate to Gatsby, some people relate to Nick, some people relate to Daisy, some people relate to all of them, aspects of all of them. It's what makes it a classic, makes it stick through time. It's these themes mixed with these characters makes all-time greats, all-time classics that impact generations of people. Right, so if you're an author watching this, I don't know why you're wasting your time listening to me, but theme and characters, guys, and I want you guys as watchers, if you may, let me know what your favorite books are that you think are great, not just good entertainment value, popcorn stuff, have changed your life, and if you got the time, maybe was it theme or was it characters in that book, or maybe it was a mix of both. Or just say your great book. I'll read it for you, then I'll let you know what I think. I'll let you know how good your taste is or how bad your taste is. Because you know what? Some of you guys are morons. I don't mean that. I only could dish it out because I give it to myself. And this is a medium in which I can talk endlessly. And you guys can't talk back. You can write all you want, but guess what? If I don't feel like reading it, I won't. I do though, guys. I really do. I don't have enough interaction with people to not read what they say, because you know you're speaking of time. If you're going to give your time to me, I'm going to give my time right back. And just like I gave you 22 minutes of my time, and hopefully I didn't waste yours. Am I right? Be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and you want to see more like it in the future. And as always, guys, I appreciate you deeply, and thanks for sticking around.